Okay, we're recording. So for those who want to listen to the playlist, hit play now. And then we'll start off in a comfortable seated position for some breath work. Yes, just playing. So prop yourself as much as you need. God, I do look ridiculously like a pirate. I'll have to figure something else out next week. So prop yourself, and actually this is your practice. So if you're tired, then if you need to lie down, please do. Because the most important thing is that you are working with your body and meeting your body where it's at this evening. So get comfortable. And then when you're ready, maybe bring the eyes to close, or if that doesn't feel right today, then just softly gaze down to the floor in front of you so that you just cut out some of the visual stimuli, which can just keep the nervous system busy. So let the eyes close. And it's Earth Day. So, I mean, every day is Earth Day, but just to celebrate, feel very connected into the ground underneath you. And if that means, you know, kind of wiggling around a little bit, so you can feel skin connected, you can feel bone and muscle. If you like to have one hand down on the ground to reinforce that feeling of connectedness, then do that. And then we're going to start to turn inwards using the breath as a tool. So to begin with, you're just noticing your breath. So be curious. Where can you feel the breath? And this is just about noticing. So there's no judgment. There's no idea of where the breath should be, how it should feel. And that's what we're aiming for. It's not always possible. And really acknowledging how the breath feels for you right now. If I were to ask you 3 words to describe your breath, what would you come up with? And we'll come back to this inquiry as we move through the practice, just to notice any changes, because in our restorative practice, we work with a natural breath. We meet our breath just as we meet our body, where we are in the moment, moment to moment. And it may be as you continue to feel your breath and focus on it, that it naturally starts to slow down. And there's that intricate dance between mind influencing body and body influencing mind. But there's no conscious affecting of the breath in this practice. And then we'll take another step inwards and just take a moment to tune in to how you are emotionally or mentally or energetically today, at this point of your Wednesday, at this point of this experience, this collective experience we're all moving through. And maybe if there was a word that would describe how you're feeling right here, right now, and let that float to the surface again. Not to get attached to, or again to apply any judgment to, but just to notice. Take 3 more breaths. And then at the end of that third breath, if you've got your eyes closed, then allow them to gently open. You might want to blink them a couple of times just to get used to the light. We're going to start off with some very gentle movement before we come into our postures of stillness. So we'll start with some cats and cows. So if you come up onto all fours, padding under the knees, and just roughly joints stacked. Make sure you're not locking out into your elbows. And then a very gentle cat and cow. So it could be a really tiny movement. As you inhale, broaden through the collarbones, almost as if you feel the chest broadening, and then exhale round, particularly feeling that stretch through the upper back, and just flowing gently in and out of the movement. And see if you can feel the movement kind of initiating in the spine, at the base of the spine. And if the head is moving, that's the last part, particularly on the expansion of the chest, the extension of the spine into the kind of the back bend. Just feel like a fluid wave moving through your body. And then if you want to start to kind of expand that movement repertoire away from just that linear cat and cow, if there's a little bit of circling of the shoulders or circling of the hips, come into that now. So kind of honoring the water, the liquid, the fluidity in the body, the fluidity on the earth. Couple more movements. And then we'll take this into extended child's pose or melting heart pose. So come to stillness in your tabletop, and then you're going to walk your arms forward, and the armpits are sort of reaching down to the floor. Head is releasing down. So it's quite a strong stretch into the shoulders. It's not a yang class, so if it's not comfortable for the chest to reach further down to the floor, then stay pressing into the palms and just pulling the hips back. So there's less strain, less extension and into the lower back. Just breathe here for a few rounds. Just exploring. And then gently walk yourself up into your tabletop. And then bump onto your hips. Bring your legs out in front of you. Arms behind you. We're going to take eastward facing stretch now, which is again quite a strong stretch. It's not one we do very often in a restorative class, but it's just a nice balance before we come into the stillness. Hand position, let's have fingers pointing forwards. We're going to have the feet hip width apart. Take a nice big inhale. As you exhale, press down into the feet and activate the legs, and then inhale, lift up. You can bend the elbows as much as you need, but just feel connected into the ground in a different way through the hands. Bottom can be low or high. This isn't a yang class. Breathe here. 2 more breaths. Feel your strength, your ability to hold yourself. And then on an exhale, gently come down, and then just allow yourself to walk down onto your forearms and come to a supine position, laying down. And we'll draw the right knee into the chest, hug it in. So feel that stretch through the lower back. If you want to, you could extend the left leg straight down the mat. if you do that, try and keep that leg really straight, because for most of us, either the leg wants to roll out or roll in. So think about that leg bone coming nice and central into the hip socket. But don't worry about having a really active leg. You can let the foot just be soft rather than drawing it into the body. And just a gentle squeeze of that right knee. And then bend the left knee if you've got the legs straight again. We're going to cross the right ankle over the left and just take it into a figure of four stretch, keeping the left foot down. We're not going to raise it up. And then something that I find quite nice to do, just to create a little bit more feeling of space in that hip socket, you take your right hand and there's that kind of C shape in between the index finger and the thumb. Just take that into your hip crease and then just draw the skin up towards your knee of the right leg. So you're just drawing the skin up, but maybe feeling a little bit more space in the hip on the right side. And then release that right hand. Release the right ankle from the left knee, bring the right foot down, and we'll swap over. So left knee draws into the chest. Keep drawing the left hip crease down so we're not kind of twisting the whole pelvis. And the right leg can stay bent, or you could extend it. If you extend it and it doesn't feel comfortable, then just draw it back in. And then soften. Something I find I often tend to do here is I'm really tensing as I'm kind of trying to pull that knee in. So soften through the arms, soften through the shoulders. If the jaw is carrying any tension, let the mouth gently open and just wiggle from side to side. Couple more breaths. And then we're going to slide that right knee up to the ceiling, foot on the floor, cross the left ankle over the right knee. And then again, you like that feeling of creating a little bit of space by drawing the skin away from the left hip crease up towards the knee. And take a moment, one more breath. And then gently release. Going to draw both knees into the chest. Just take a little bit of a roll around in one direction and the other. And then when you're ready, rolling over onto one side, hand down, and use your hands to support you. Bring yourself up, and we will set up for our first fully restorative posture. So we're going to take a supported bridge. So for this, because for the arms, it involves an opening of the chest, it's nice to have a blanket spread out across the back of your mat. Once you've got the blanket down, have it quite wide because our arms are going to come into this goalpost shape. So you need to have enough width on your blanket that it supports the backs of the arms. And then also just take a little bit of care to make sure that there's no kind of wrinkles in your blanket, because that will get really irritating after a while. And then you're going to take your bolster or your pillow wrapped in a blanket and pop it horizontally across your mat. If your pillow with the blanket is really quite low and flat, you might need two stacked on top of each other. A lot of it's going to depend on how the lower back feels. So if I just show you how to get into this, and then I'll come to the screen and just have a look at everyone. So you kind of sit on your bolster or your bolster substitutes, knees bent. I like to put my hands on the side and then just drop my bottom down, not all the way to the floor, but just so that when I come to lean back, my lower back, the curve of the lower back is cradled by the support. Resting down, feet hip width apart. If you have a tendency for your legs to naturally fall out, it might be an idea, if you've got anything handy like a belt or a tie or a strap, just to wrap that around the legs, just to hold them in place so you're not having to use muscles. And then the arms will come out in goalposts, the backs of the hands resting down, the shoulders resting down, and almost feeling like the shoulder blades are melting away. Let the eyes come to softly close. And then let go and release. And it may be that you kind of need to move around a bit so you feel really supported in that sacral area. There's no compression of the lower back. Let's take a quick look at everyone. Yeah, everyone's looking pretty good from what I can see. So to begin with, this might feel quite strong across the chest, particularly if you've maybe been sitting at a desk all day working. I used to say about this pose, if you've been doing a lot of driving, but I've had to kind of take that comment out of my repertoire at the moment for most of us. And if there is any feeling of kind of tightness and tension in the front of the chest, can you consciously focus on softening through the shoulder blades? Maybe there's a sense of the muscles on the back body, around the upper back body, resting and releasing down into the earth. If you notice that the legs really want to kind of externally rotate, so the knees draw away from each other, you could try separating the feet a little bit wider and then knocking the knees in towards each other to create a support. But you just need to be careful if you do that, because that can create a little bit of tension around the SI joints. And then come back to the breath with that sense of curiosity and inquiry. How does your breath feel in this shape? Has it changed where you notice the breath in the body? Has it changed how easeful the breath feels? Meet yourself where you are in your practice this evening. So I posted on Harbour's social media earlier, just acknowledging that for some of us, this practice of stillness is incredibly challenging. It could be a really useful mirror, because for many of us, we are being forced to slow down at the moment, do less. And that is really difficult if it's not what you're used to. I think it's really important to acknowledge the challenge if it's there. And also just to know that it's okay to find it challenging. Because actually, if we acknowledge it, then maybe there's an opportunity to start to question, to understand, to change if that's what we want to do. That's why our yoga practice can be so powerful, so helpful, acting as a mirror. There's a space to notice these patterns, these behaviors, these samskaras, and consciously decide what we want to do about them. Last few breaths here in our supported bridge. And then we'll gently start to transition out. So a couple of ways you can do this depending on how kind of spongy or supportive your bolster is. One way is just to simply roll over onto your side, use your hands to press yourself up, or you can bring both knees into the chest, hands on the bolster, kind of lift the hips and roll the bolster out of the way so you're lying down flat, and then come over to the side and then bring yourself up. And then once you're up, we're going to sit on your bolster or bolsters so that we can take a gentle twist here. So again, get comfortable. And we'll start by taking the right hand behind you on your bolster. You want to make sure that it comes kind of behind your left buttock, so it's not over to the right, so you're not twisting that far around. So just rest the hand gently. The left hand comes onto the outside of the right thigh, and then feel the twist coming round from the shoulders, so we're not twisting through the lower back. It's very much an upper body twist. And again, it's quite interesting to notice how moving the rib cage in this way, the intercostal muscles, maybe changes the way that the breath feels. Two more breaths here. On an exhale, gently come back to center. Take a moment here just to let the spine settle. And then we'll take it onto the other side. So left hand behind, outside the left butt cheek, right hand on the outside of the left thigh. And then again, turning to the shoulders rather than through the lower waist, the lower back. Collarbones drawing away from each other. One more breath. And then gently come back to center. Take a moment here in this kind of vertical position again. And we'll set up for our next restorative posture. We're going to take supported Baddha Konasana. So talk you through options here depending on the prop situation. You need one support across the back of your mat, kind of horizontally, and then another one on top of it vertically. If you've got a really saggy bolster or pillow, then just take a book or a brick, if you've got a brick, and just pop it kind of on top. And actually put mine on the bolster, just to stop it sagging and falling. Then you want to take one of your blankets to create a rest for the back of the head, because when we come to lie down, we want to make sure that the forehead is higher than the chin rather than the other way around. And then either You can use folded blankets or cushions on either side of your mat to support your thighs. So sacrum at the base of your bolster, lie back and really make sure that your head is supported. And then soles of the feet together, legs out to the side, and then move your supports in so that those outer thighs are really supported. There's no sense of the joints kind of holding in space and the muscles holding the legs in position. Once you're there, hands could be down by your sides with the palms facing up. You could have elbows down, hands resting on the hip creases. Or even a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly, but your arms probably will get tired after a time doing that. So if you want to start there to feel that connection, to feel held, then by all means then just drop them down and let them rest when you need to. Let the eyes softly close. If you've got an eye bag, that can be really nice on the forehead or over the eyes here. Otherwise, just let the eyes be really soft. Maybe take your focus around the muscles around the eye socket. See if you it's quite useful to do that. Kind of screw your eyes up really tight and then let them go. So we sometimes do that at the beginning of Shavasana with the whole body. You can do that with your eyes just to release any tension. Let the jaw be soft, so make sure that the tongue is down in the base of the mouth. And then start that process of releasing into the shape, meeting your body where it's at this evening. And again, maybe just notice the breath. How is it feeling? Where are you feeling? And then what are you feeling? Last few breaths in Baddha Konasana. And gently take your hands onto the outside of the thighs and draw the knees up to the ceiling. And just take a very gentle twisting motion here. So keeping the body lying on your bolsters. Just gently drop the knees over to one side. They're not going to come all the way down to the floor for most of us. It's almost like you're windscreen wipering. And then just drop the knees over to the other side. So really gentle. Gentle side to side motion. So this time the twist is coming much lower down, the lower back and the hips. Maybe do one more each side. Maybe tune into any sense of that lower back area being massaged as it moves over the bolster. That can feel quite nice. And then we're gently going to come out of this. So you can either drop the knees over to one side and press yourself up, or press your hands down into the floor and gently lift the torso up into a seated position directly. Take your time though, and then when you come up, just sit for a moment again, just to realign, get connected back into the ground. And we'll set up for our next posture. We're going to take a supported pigeon, which don't often take in restorative yoga. So we're all going to need different kind of props for the hips and the back leg. But what we will need is one bolster, or if they're very flat, two stacked on top of each other, parallel with the long side of the mat. That's what I'm trying to say. And then come to kneel behind your bolster. And then slightly awkward to get into. We'll go with the right leg first. You're going to bend the right knee and bring the right foot. For most of us, it's not going to be horizontal with the short side of the mat. It's going to be more angled, maybe a 45-degree angle. Bring your hands down. So you're kind of in this weird raised position. And then gently start to slide the left leg back behind you. And then this is where we start to get into the padding. So we're going to draw the bolster in. I like to have it resting on my right ankle, because we're going to come and lie down over the bolster. But for some of us, let me turn it around the other way so you can see. For some of us, that means that our right hip is going to be floating in space, which we don't really want in a restorative class. So this is where you would take your blanket, and there's no kind of, it doesn't have to look pretty, but you're just providing some support for that outer hip so that you can come and rest down. It may be that the left hip wants a little bit of padding underneath it as well. That can feel quite nice. And if it feels like that left knee is pressing down into the ground, then pop a blanket underneath that. So you should feel nice and balanced, nice and supported. If your right leg is really parallel with the front of the mat, sort of in that position, not sure if I can get it there, then flex the foot. But if it's closer into the groin, then don't worry about that so much. And then just come to lie down. You could rest the forehead down as long as the nose is free so that you can breathe easily, or turn your head to the side. It can be either side. Turning it away from the knee is obviously going to be a stronger twist on the cervical spine. Just have a look at everyone. And then start in the shape by just doing a kind of a scan through the body. And just see if you can notice any areas where there's some tension. So it may be around the outer right hip and the front of the left hip. They're being quite strong stretches. So if you notice it feels like you're holding there, which is often what we do when there's tension, can you consciously, and it's hard, can you consciously try to bring some softness in? So just as we did with that kind of the screwing up of the eyes and then that feeling of releasing, can you tap into that around your hips? And then the other thing you could maybe visualize or imagine is that my hands are just gently resting on your lower back area. So there's a little bit of pressure and warmth, or a sandbag, it doesn't have to be my hands, but there's just something gently there, soothing, providing a little bit more grounding, a little bit more sense of sinking and releasing. And then come back to your breath. How does it feel here in this shape and at this point in the practice? If you were to describe it to yourself, what words would you use? And if the words that come to mind are hard to admit, so if the breath feels difficult, stuck, not easeful, then recognize that that's fine. The gift is in acknowledging, not in having an easeful breath all the time. That's not real life. Come back and join you. If you've got your head turned to the side, just to balance out for the last minute or so on this side, maybe lift the head and gently turn it the opposite way. See how that feels. That may feel too much, may feel too tight, in which case just bring it back to the first side. And if you have moved the head, then just notice if that's caused any tension to creep in around the shoulders. Can you consciously soften, release, and let go? Last few breaths in a pigeon on this side. And then we're very slowly and mindfully going to come out. So draw the hands, palms down, press into the floor. If you've got any support under the outside of your right butt cheek, move it out of the way. Gently roll over and then bring both legs out in front of you for a moment, sitting up tall, and just rotate the ankles a few times, one way and the other. And then we'll set up for the other side. So left leg is going to bend, right leg's going to swivel back behind you. It's not elegant to get into at all. And be very mindful, just because you had a certain kind of level of prop on the right side doesn't mean it's going to be the same on the left. There goes the earpiece. The sides are going to be different. You've got different kind of tightness in the hips. And just make sure that that back leg is relatively straight before you come down. And then start the process on this side of sinking, of releasing. How does the breath feel on this side? How does the body feel on this side? Notice if any tension has crept in those classic places around the shoulders, around the jaw, around the eyes. Can you work to soften again? If you've got your head turned in one direction, then maybe just lift it and turn it the opposite way. And then if that feels too much, bring it back to the first side and just make it so that it's not in one position for too long, so it gets really stuck. Last moments in pigeon on this side. And then gently start to walk the hands underneath the shoulders. So bring the torso up and then bump yourself over onto the outer left hip. Bring both legs forward in front of you. And again, just some gentle rotations of the ankles, pointing and flexing of the feet, just to bring some movement, to bring some blood flow back. And then we're going to set up for final rest for Shavasana. So take your time, wrap up. Even if you're quite warm, it's a nice thing to have a blanket or a jumper, long sleeves on, just to add a little bit of kind of weight to the body to help that feeling of connecting into the ground, grounding. That gentle pressure can help relax the body. Support under the backs of the knees, anywhere you need. And then also remember that Shavasana or rest, Shavasana is traditionally lying on your back, but that doesn't mean that's the position you have to take for rest. Curling on the side, being in the fetal position, lying on your tummy, all really, really valid ways of allowing the body to drop into stillness. I'm going to share a reading which is called Honoring Grief from a book called Prayers of Honoring. Thank you for this blessed day, this blessing of life on us, heavy with awareness of what has been surrendered. Inspire us to grieve enough. Remind us not to strive for completing the process for the sake of being done. Help us with our tendency to avoid. Establish in us a belief that we get to wear the face of our pain, not a brave mask that puts others at ease. Help us to speak and honor our pain, understanding that we do not suffer our losses alone. Ease our minds when those who cannot relate to our suffering don't know what to say or do for us. Hold our rage and abandonment while we come to discover what is at the bottom of our deep sorrow. Emphasize to us that someone somewhere understands, despite our contrary thoughts. It is a comfort for our hearts to be able to access the spirit of what is no longer. Unlock the passageways so that we may commune with those we remember. Allow the souls who have been reclaimed to visit us in our dreams and visions. Help us to preserve the love we came to count on. Teach us to honor our relatives who have taken on another form with purpose and reverence. Instruct us in the art of divine communication. Remind us that everything that dies will be reborn in some way, even if we don't possess the words to describe this process. Help us trust in your mystery while we feel our feelings. Groom us to take the long road if we need to. Help us know that our tears are cleansing and our grief sacred, that we can take all of the time we need to release and cleanse our wound of loss. Point it out each time we forget that we are equipped with the perfect tools for this process. Give us the energy and the strength to weep. We're grateful for the visceral experience of flow when your healing rains wash over us, allowing our emotional bodies to be washed in your waters. Carry our honest pain downstream to join the infinite tributaries of sorrow and mourning in the salty womb of the ocean. Let us mingle our tears with others in the gesture of sharing. Show us how to honor our collective human experience. Remind us that we do not have to fill the empty places with anything at all at this time. Guide us gently through the anxiety of vacancy where love was once held us. Start to become aware of the weight of your body being held by the earth, feeling without moving. And then start to allow some very gentle movement in. And then extend the movements. Any stretches you want to take in that journey back to your evening. And when you feel ready, roll over onto your side, take a few breaths there. And again, when you're ready, use your hands to support you. Bring yourself up to that comfortable seat, whatever that is for you right now. Maybe keeping the eyes closed or gazing down. And then resting the hands somewhere that's comfortable or somewhere that feels right for you. Maybe on the heart, on the belly, on the ground. Just taking a few centering breaths here. Tune into your breath this last time. How is it feeling? If you had to describe it, how would you describe it? And then tune in deeper. How are you feeling right now in those other layers, emotional, mental, energetic? What word would you use? Or words? And then gently, just a little bit of self-soothing, wrap your arms around your neck gently so that the heels of the palms are at the front, fingers working towards the back. Take a few slow breaths here, feeling that skin on skin contact. And then gently slide the hands over the collarbones, over the chest, and let them rest on the heart. Breathe into your hands. And then continue to slide the hands down over the front of the body, down to your belly. And again, breathe into the seat of kind of intuition, wisdom. Meet yourself where you are right now. Acknowledge without judgment. And then gently draw your hands together at heart center. Press the thumbs into your sternum. Allow the head to bow. Thank you so much for sharing your Wednesday evening in your practice with me. Namaste.